Wait, this is the right video, isn't it? Okay, yeah, this is the right one. It's about, I think, the mental state of Britney Spears. I think her husband had recently come out with
So I am a
some sort of um, tell-all memoir or something. I'm not for sure.
legal guardian to my brother. I have spent most of my life watching
I think she mentions in this that her brother and her um, father actually have issues, which is that's kind of a hard road to hoe. I don't know how much her father was in her life, but I think her brother was very much so. She had kind of I don't know, reconciled or met with her father maybe or later in life, I think. So yeah.
my brother and my father battle mental illness. I have spent more time in psychiatric hospital visiting hours than most people my age, and based on
This is completely unrelated and probably a little bit insensitive, but I thought at some point it'd be interesting if I ever get a set or something like that to put some sort of like troll board in the background that just says random weird shit or something. All right, serious, okay? Serious.
that, here is my take on Britney Spears' ex's new memoir.
Like, I don't know if it what it seems like to you guys, but it seems like Hollywood has more than its share of crazies, and maybe it's somewhat the industry that makes them crazy, or the fame, or all sorts of crap, and maybe it's just like the artistic temperament as well. Maybe there'd be a bit of a bias there, like a selection bias. Actors are all unstable. That's the point.
So Kevin Federline is Britney Spears' ex-husband. He is also the father to her two sons, and he just released a memoir. It is titled You Thought You Knew by Kevin Federline, and this is basically him breaking his silence.
Hmm.
He is telling his side of the story as the man who was married to Britney Spears and who has spent the better part of his life now raising their children. And Kevin Federline, he used to be a rapper. People say he's a failed
You know, one thing is, has been a terrible, terrible victim in the woke war or the culture wars. Some of the funniest cringe humor back in the day used to be weird people acting black or ethnic of some sort because they couldn't do it and it was hilarious to watch. And it feels like now that's just called racist or racial appropriation or offensive. I don't know. It was some of the best humor because again, obviously, a lot, to me at least, it was very much humor, like people trying to act ethnic and dismally failing. Can't really do that much. Well, I mean, I imagine these days you get away with it more than a couple of years ago.
rapper, but now, to be honest, he is just known as her ex. He rose to even more fame and popularity by being married to her at the peak of her career, and he has now
Yeah,
spent his
the first trophy husband. No.
life dealing with the aftermath of their marriage and her public breakdown. And we're going to talk about this book today and the public reactions and whether or not I think they're valid. Now, before we get into that, make sure that you like this video and subscribe to our channel if you've not already. And of
No,
course, if you want to stay up to date on all things Brett Cooper and the show, make sure to go to brettcooper.com. I have a
sorry, you
couple new
guys
live
can't.
shows on there. I'm
I
doing
don't
a
really
show
like
on
again.
November 5th.
I mostly subscribe to like I think I'm subscribed to Alex Steele and a lot of cooking shows and maybe a couple of like it's maybe one apologetics, maybe some smithing stuff. But I don't know if I really subscribe to drama or news or political people.
So next week in New York City.
But
And
feel free, feel free. In fact, if you like her stuff, please do. It's nice to.
then I have a show at Zany's here in Nashville on November 22nd. They are super fun. It's like a more high energy live version of the show. I think it's super fun, so you guys should come out and see one. All right, so let's dive into this story. I feel like my mood right now is just a bit more somber. Maybe it's because it has been raining for like 4 straight days in Nashville. Maybe it's because the baby barely slept
Halloween. Ooh.
last night and I'm filming this at like 5 p.m. instead of midday, and so it literally is darker. Or maybe it's just the content that we're diving into, but this
I had been hearing something where it's supposed to like really cold down south for whatever reason. Well, by really cold, I mean I guess I don't know what temperature it actually was, but generally speaking, cold has two different meanings depending on whether you live in the north or in the south. But inordinately cold,
story, as you guys probably
technically
know,
something.
based on my life, if you guys have, watched any interviews with me or know this part of my story, a lot of what Kevin is talking about in this book, a lot of Brittany's story hits really close to home. And so these are stories that I enjoy talking about and I enjoy sharing this, even though it can often be painful. So I don't know, maybe that's why the mood is slower today. But anyway, we should just get into this. So there's a lot of press about Kevin's book, but I don't think there's a lot of people reading it. And
So I think to give a backdrop to this, there was a whole kerfuffle over an arrangement Britney Spears had with her father. I don't remember what the actual word for it is, but like her father was basically in charge of her finances because she was kind of bad shit insane, more or less. She was really crazy, and there were a time where people wanted it to get taken away, so she was, in control of her own stuff again. Then it happened, and she started acting insane, I think, and people realized that, well, maybe there was a reason. Maybe it shouldn't have been her father, because her father might not be a great dude, but she should have had someone in charge of her stuff, because she is literally insane. So that might be where we are kind of today.
I think that this is a fact because apparently this book did not even crack the top 500 on Amazon. One article reads, Kevin Federline's tell-all memoir you
Hmm.
thought you knew was expected to draw major attention. Instead, it is tanked. According to Rob Schuster's Substack, the book has failed to break into Amazon's top 500 even after an aggressive publicity push. A publishing insider told the outlet he thought shocking sells.
Hmm.
That strategy fell flat. Public support remains firmly on Britney Spears' side. Now, a lot of people's negative opinions about Kevin, about this book, their refusal to even
Hmm.
touch it or read it, is based in people's complete alliance and trust in the Free Britney movement, resulting in people flat out just, refusing to read the book. They don't want to hear these stories
Hmm.
and they are painting him
Eyes wide shut.
as the villain in her story. But regardless of your opinions on Britney Spears' conservatorship, on the Free Britney movement,
Conservatorship, that was the word. Right. I think her father had a conservatorship, which might be more common in it might be more common in Hollywood situations where children actually get a whole bunch of money. Which kind of makes sense, but it also, I don't know if I would say that all parents are deserving of that sort of, yeah, I don't know.
I do think
I guess like it's one of those things where like with regards to kids, it feels like maybe parents aren't always the best, but there are a few people that are more suited, I guess, to it. And maybe there would be some sort of agency where you could literally just say, okay, the money is going to this agency, and they'll hold it in trust for you until you come of age or something like that. That would maybe be a way to do it. But yeah,
that his side of the story is worth hearing and is certainly worth telling because he's the father of her children. He has spent the last 19 years or more being part of her life. And the things that he shares in this book, if true, and that's a very important caveat, if true, would make it
and a part of me also think, I'm sorry, I'm just kind of ignoring what she's saying, but it does feel like parents who allow their kids to go into Hollywood would be a different sort of breed, given some of the stuff that goes on. I think a lot of people that don't care, like it would seem to indicate maybe a lack of care given what goes on and what the parents would probably know goes on sometimes in those circles. So you might get a bit of a selection bias with regards to that too. Um, yeah.
abundantly clear why Brittany lost custody and why she was put in a conservatorship to begin with. And maybe people are not wanting to read the book. Maybe they're ignoring this fact because they have spent so much time investing in the Free Britney movement. They don't want their opinion changed.
Brittany is stunning and brave, and I won't hear a word. No.
I don't know, but I think it is worth diving into. I'm going to read you a few excerpts so that you don't have to go read the entire book, because again, I think that his side of the story is worth telling. Now, this first part that I'm going to read is about something that happened at a party that took place at Paramount Studios. And so Kevin is saying he walked into this party, Brittany was already there. He walks in with his security guard, Big Mike, and he writes, Big Mike, yeah, not that Big Mike, I know, guys. Anyway, sorry. And there they were, Brittany, her brother Brian, Jason Trawick,
Okay, now I have to look up Big Mike. Big Mike. Hmm. Michael Barnett. I'm gonna guess it's a rapper of some sort. Ones that come up are Blindside. So there was a NFL guy. Maybe that's the Big Mike she's thinking of. But this is a different Big Mike.
her agent at the time, and an actress who was about to blow up from a role that would transform her life. They were sitting around the coffee table in my dressing room. The first thing that I saw was Brittany and her young starlet friend snorting a fat line of coke off the table. Both were wearing these outrageous wigs. Brittany's was electric blue. It was surreal. They didn't even try to hide it. Eddie was right there with me. Jamie, still outside, didn't see anything. He didn't want to know and wasn't sneaking any peeks, but he
Okay, let me read this. Big Mike opened the door, and there they were, Brittany and her brother Brian, her agent at the time, and an actress was about to blow up from a role to transform her life. They were sitting around the coffee table. Blah, 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 blah. Then so was Brittany, her young starlet friend. Oh, for the love!
could sense that something was up. And
Telling you, they're all unstable. Oh, goodness gracious!
Kevin goes on to explain that this was right around the time that their second son had been born. So they have two young children at home right now. Brittany's breastfeeding. They are not using formula, and he
That is
walks in and he sees the mother of his children snorting coke when his two sons are at home expecting to be fed when
that's not. This is obvious, but that's not great. I've heard you can those early years, and especially when, well, if you're pregnant or those early years, I think are really kind of important. You can end up with some very strange, I think, side effects of that. Very adverse ones, perhaps even. I don't know. You'd have to ask the doctor, but I think you don't want to be messing with that stuff.
she arrives at home. And so now he's pleading with her, saying, please, did you save any milk? Do we need to get formula? Like, you can't go home and feed them like this. And so the common thread in this book with the stories that Kevin is telling is that almost all of the ones that he shares involve their children. That seems to be Kevin's
Mm.
primary concern and the thing that he wanted to share more than anything. Probably, in my opinion, to dispel the public idea that he and Brittany's father, Jamie, were in cahoots to take her money and control her life and take her kids away purely just simply to exploit her, when according to him and according to her father and many people
Mm.
around her, it was for the safety of her and their family. Like, I mean, take this.
Again, I think there were stories that she was kind of full on crazy. And there might be an element where the people who were part of the Free Britney movement, you're kind of locked in sometimes to the courses of action you choose because, like, it's to admit that you were wrong, to admit that you did something wrong, it's kind of hard. Um, Sometimes it might take even a little bit of a jolt to actually shake you out of your pride a little bit. You're more likely to just continue the course.
Story. He writes, then came the stories that shook me to my core, the ones that I didn't hear until the boys stopped seeing her. They would awaken, sometimes at night, to find her standing silently in the doorway, watching them sleep. Oh, you're awake, she would say, with a knife in her hand. Then she'd turn around and pad off without explanation. Creepy as fuck. Other nights, they'd wake to the sound
She
of her
said the F
screaming
word. Cover your ears, children.
bloody murder or smashing things in the house. All of this terrified them. I literally get chills because we're going to talk about this
Sorry. Yeah, I wasn't even thinking about this. There's a scene from, I think, the third season of Blackadder where uh the murder of the bloody Prince Romero. It's it's a interesting, if somewhat crass show, but very funny as well. Hugh Lowry, I think, plays in that season.
later, but I just get flashbacks to the things that I experienced as a kid in a very dysfunctional family and household. So I'm just empathizing with her children here. He goes on, here's another story. He says, then there were the stories that the boys shared as they got older. Preston once told me that she had punched him in the face. I used to do every interview back then with a smile, keeping things light,
Oh,
always saying we're doing great,
stupid.
always
Sorry, I
protect.
was about to sneeze and I couldn't. Again, I'm not trying to make light of this. It's important stuff. So, all right.
Her. But maybe that was a mistake. Maybe the truth needed to come out because covering it up didn't help her, and it definitely didn't help the boys. And the hardest thing to admit now is that the truth was always there, staring me in the face, and I didn't want to see it. I felt like I was the only one truly looking out for them. And I know that that's not entirely true. Jamie loves the boys, and I know that Brittany loves
Mm.
them too. But love doesn't erase the trauma that they endured or the bad decisions that affected their lives. And there's no telling how much more happened that I don't even know about.
Did you know 90% of all puzzles are flowers, animals, or landscapes? Well, we thought
Mm.
that was boring.
What the? You twisted wench. Leave puzzles as they are.
Now, later in the book, some of the other stories.
Now, for the record, there's some really interesting ones. There's ones that we have where I don't know who makes them. There's Where's Waldo puzzles. Those are pretty cool. There was one where there's a whole bunch of pirates and whatnot. Those are kind of cool. There's one where there's like a we have where there's a giant like city in the clouds. I think it's a pretty famous one. It's kind of like a just a you know sci-fi. Well, it's not really sci-fi. It's just kind of a whimsical type of city in the clouds, road going down to Earth or whatever. Pretty fun. Pretty.
That Kevin shared were things like the fact that Brittany would allegedly repeatedly feed her sons food that she knew they were allergic to, or one of her sons was forced to
Mm.
be around horses with her even though she knew that he was severely allergic. Another one of her sons was hospitalized after getting into pills, and Kevin alludes to the fact that they were possibly Brittany's pills that she was taking. Like, these stories are just awful,
Mm.
and I am just scratching the surface of what was in this book. And according to Kevin, for years, for their entire childhood, he tried to keep all of this offline, and he even shared this opinion with the boys, this message of we need to.
Oh, and that's like the other element. I feel like it's just a thing on top of other things that all of this is also in the public view to some much. Or it just like feels like it just makes it that much harder, especially when like it feels like there are very few people that like maybe like Tom Cruise or something like that who actually keep their private life for the most part private. I know there was stuff a while back about him being a Scientologist, and he was kind of crazy in that regards a little bit. Was it Katie Holmes? Was that his gal pal? But it feels like he's mostly stabilized these days, and you don't really hear a lot about him. And it feels like there's that element of like if your private life stays private, I think it's like you would have a better chance of maintaining some sort of equilibrium in that regards. But that's maybe a hard thing to do in Hollywood. A whole bunch of people scrounging around for stuff they can talk about.
Keep things private. And he wrote, Preston, one of their sons, told me how a fan went after him online. This person, a Free Brittany militant, was pressuring him to support his mom publicly. And in frustration, Preston told him the things that he'd experienced. He said that she'd hit him, threatened him with a knife, acted violently and dangerously. He was only 16 then. And I remember telling him not to air out personal stuff online, but that's what blew the lid off the knife situation, how I first learned about Brittany's disturbing behavior. And it made me wonder how I'd missed it for so long. For years, I'd been under the impression that things were stable enough, but then I realized as time went on that the damage was too deep to repair and the situation was more complex and fractured than I'd realized. And in that situation, he's talking about, their time under the conservatorship, where he thought things were getting better, that she was more under control.
Okay, so did the conservatorship ever transfer to him? Oh, I think it was mostly her father that was in charge of everything. I'd have gotten the idea that that was the case.
She was doing better, and he learned from his sons that that was not the case whatsoever. And according to Kevin, the boys were ready for this story to be told. This is what he said in an Entertainment Tonight interview.
My children are ready for me to tell my story, because it's not just my story, right? This affects everybody in my family, my kids, my wife, even my exes.
And he's right. He does have a story here to tell. Her sons have a story here to tell. And so maybe this is what they needed in order to start the healing process. Now, before we get into the reactions of the book and me sharing kind of my personal take on this, I want to tell you about my friends over at Balance of Nature. Now, I don't know about you, but I am always looking.
I feel cheated. Again, there was no transfer. There was no snarky and endearing transfer over.
for simple ways to get more whole food ingredients into my diet, and Balance of Nature supplements make that so easy. And what makes Balance of Nature stand out to me is that there are no binders, no fillers, no flow agents. It is just ingredients from 16 whole fruits and whole vegetables, freeze-dried and lab-tested. Their supplement powders are made from 100% whole foods, delivering the natural goodness of fruits, vegetables, spices, and fibers just as nature intended. And they're not just convenient, they are the original balance of color, taste, plus 35% off your first set as a new preferred customer by using code BRETT at checkout. Now,
Go use
as you're going to see later in
code
this
Brett.
episode, it is more difficult than ever to know who to trust and where to look. And I think the ground
All
news
right.
is one of the most
No, I
powerful
sat through
tools
one
tackling
ish.
this. Now, as you guys know, I'm very intentional about who I choose to. You can see the stories that both the left and the right are suppressing. And this is why I have partnered with Ground News to get you full access to the truth for 40% off.
Trump
That's
says,
$5 a month for the same Vantage plan that I have been using when you go to groundnews.com/Brett or scan the QR code on the screen. This app is how we hold.
Teresa, somehow I had a dream last night about Trump. I don't remember exactly what he was doing. I think he was acting crazy or something. A lot of you are like, oh, that's just par for the course. Yeah. Surprise, surprise. Politicians sometimes act crazy. I don't know. Not getting into that. Not getting into the ramifications of that. All right.
Story at all. I mean, he is being ripped to shreds online basically in every single corner of the internet right now. He's obviously.
Well, there's just like, I feel like in the world today, there's a lot of people who it feels like the ethos of the time, the zeitgeist or whatever, is just tolerance and indulgence. Whatever a person wants, you have to support that thing. And there's an element, especially where people are kind of insane, but even where they're not. I don't think tolerance and indulgence are like the North Star, the absolute best of what we can hope for in other human beings or in our friends and family. Just that they support us no matter what. Like, no, I like to think that people I care about will tell me if they think I'm doing something wrong, that they can still care about me and yet disagree with something that I'm doing. And believe it or not, I'm willing to put up with quite a lot of crap if I think a person genuinely cares about me. Even if I think their advice is wrong or that I'm still right, I'm willing to hear them out if I think they genuinely care about who I am as a person. And in situations like this where there's someone who's literally insane, it feels like they don't need someone to indulge their insanity. They need someone to stop them from doing crazy stuff. I feel like people around you are one of the things that keeps you grounded in a lot of these situations.
Obviously being ripped apart by the Brittany fandom, but also it's not just them. Like basically every single interview that he has done in promotion of this book has been critical, with journalists basically playing the offense on Brittany's behalf. And the public seems to have overwhelmingly taken her side
She's a strong, independent woman.
in all of this. And to be honest, they do have a good reason to be skeptical. They
Yeah,
have a
that's.
good
I was waiting for this part.
reason to take her side because the timing of this book is interesting. We do have to admit that, because their youngest son just turned 18 years old. And what does that mean? Well, child support money has run out. The tens of thousands of dollars that Kevin was getting every single month, poof, they no longer exist. He does not have a career really other than being her ex and raising her children. He has no power or control or involvement in her life anymore. And coincidentally, now is the time that he chooses to write a tell-all book, and people simply are not buying.
It feels like the timing is unfortunate. If you'd wanted maximum output or whatever, like it feels like it could be a golden parachute or something where he's trying to make a name for himself or a life for himself after this stuff. So like I I don't know. Maybe he's just feeling, oh, this is the time because they like generous interpretation. Maybe he's just feeling, okay, so now they're old enough. Now I can do this thing. But also, where there's money involved, there's always going to be a little bit of skepticism, and perhaps rightly so in my mind. But it feels like he could have chosen a better time to do this. A time when he would have received less scrutiny, perhaps. All right. Anyways, you can check this out if you want. It seems like a weird title, but baiting 10-year-old cocaine while breastfeeding and a knife at the door kind of runs on a little bit, but episode 84 by Brett Cooper. Go check that out if you want to. You can watch the full video there.